Hello, my name is Carly Nieves.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Vanessa Rodriguez.
So we are going to have a conversation on postmodernism and social constructivism. And so one thing we were just talking about before the recording, when we were catching up on our readings and everything, as we were talking about the difference in between modernism and postmodernism. Modernism really coming from this expert-driven position and postmodernism really being about that co-collaboration, that not coming into the therapy room with a client knowing everything. And so, however, there were some criticisms of postmodernism that were interesting of kind of, some of the egocentrism that can come out of it. And so, we were talking about what are some of the ethical obligations in helping clients co-create their reality.
So something you really well you touched on is that they both significantly reshaped the field of family therapy by challenging a lot of the norms and assumptions in the search of like truth, knowledge, and essentially the therapist's role. Um, I personally believe that postmodernism has come a long way compared to modernism, specifically so with like the founders um, gaining a lot of their research and information mostly off of um, cultures that weren't outside of the realm of being Caucasian, of being upper class, of being um, educated. So a lot of that also played a role in how these ideas came about and how they were treating people as clinicians. And in that time, obviously, things have evolved, things have changed, things have come to the forefront of culture mattering, your background mattering, and that all playing a part in the way the client should be treated for what they could be seeing you for.
Yeah, no, I agree that it definitely brings more, it definitely starts to kind of veer off of the very westernized and like white centric view, and it really starts to dive deeper into other things that might be really impacting people. And as such a diverse population, it's really good that we're starting to kind of look more broadly in like what's affecting other people rather than trying to fit them into the little box of like white people stuff that doesn't really apply to a lot of other people. So really broadening that is it's great.
Yeah, and to
And I
bring
also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to touch then on how this segues really well into evidence-based practice. Yeah, and so some of that being evidence-based practice has been, it appeals to dominant culture often more times than it does marginalized cultures. And so yeah, and it brings in a lot of what research is. So postmodernism is going to be kind of less focused on, I always get qualitative and quantitative mixed up. The one that was all about the data, so it's qualitative, quantitative is the data one. Yeah, so a lot of these postmodern theories are going to be more qualitative. And another thing that I think of there too is actually I want to hear what Vanessa had to say though too before I get on to this conversation.
Well, I was not going to go there, well, where you were saying, but I was going to talk about the role that the clinician plays. More so, it's not as a fixer, it's a collaborator in postmodernism. And I think that, quite frankly, alone has made us such a change in how people who actually give therapy a chance or actually look into it and don't have these stigmas or ideas of what it pertains to. Just having that collaborative relationship with a client, I think it makes them feel more involved. It makes them feel more understood when they're taking part in the diagnostic side, when they're taking part in coming to conclusions or understanding how their brain works or things like that.
Yeah, no, I know I've heard in a couple different classes where we really start focusing on like, the client is like the expert on themselves, and I actually really like that point of view because we don't know who they are. They have to tell us. And when we try to act like the expert in the room, it can be it can be very intimidating for them to try to trust us and everything. And I think the collaboration kind of lens is great because it really like we're here to support them rather than like fix them and stuff. So I think that that's a great shift that is it's very positive for us and like the whole field.
So I do want to challenge it a little bit just to make this fun. Um, Now, what happens when we do kind of going back to that? What are our ethical responsibilities? Like, so we have the diagnostic manual, we have all of these theories, we have all of this research. And so then we're in this position and we're helping clients. And so where does that come in? Like, how do we, like, how do we remain client focused in that postmodern way without kind of, we also have tons of these resources that have been, developed all over these years. So how, I don't know, does that bring up anything for either of you?
So kind of what you're saying is the fact that we're technically not doctors, right? So we're not really going to into depth of some of these things that maybe a psychiatrist would, right? That actually can give the medication. So what you're saying is we're kind of teetering in the role of being able to diagnose, but not not being fully trained in it, like that it could be dangerous. Is that what you're saying?
No, but I think that's a really interesting point.
Okay.
What I was more so saying is, how do we reconcile all of that, like while helping clients co-create their reality and
Okay, I
and
understand what you're
everything.
saying
And
now.
then what if their reality isn't matching up with our reality, or that these models that have been developed, like all of these theories on all of these problems and stuff, it's like, so I think that's a tricky thing when I think about, like, and being in that non-expert role, like when we still see things and we're like making conclusions in our head.
I a
I think
hundred percent, sorry,
no, it's okay.
I 100% see what you're saying with this, and this is a fact. This is something we're gonna deal with. This is what we're gonna be thrown into, and unfortunately, a lot of the time without extra training, right? So my thought process in this is even though we're giving so many theories and so much information and how to diagnose and what to look for and characteristics that a person may pertain, it quite frankly may not apply to some people. There might just be s- some things that or not something, some people that we're not going to be able to help in their reality or what we see reality as, and we have to be prepared for that. The only thing I could think of that would be helpful in those situations is being an advocate, giving resources, being empathetic, trying to bring them back to reality and come to conclusions and realizations. But I'm sure we're going to get a lot of pushback. We're going to get an altered vision of what they have. So that unfortunately might be something frustrating that we're going to have to learn to process and try to deal with. But I mean, when we were doing our interviews, one of the people that interviewed somebody said she works for the county, has never been trained, and all the clients she's been giving are schizophrenics. Like, and that takes me to the next question. When are we causing harm, with these things? But we'll get to that next. But I'm sorry, Hannah, but yeah.
No, it's okay. I think for me, like what really first comes up is just like balancing between like of course we have all of this knowledge and that's why we're there and that's why they're coming to us is because we've gone to the schooling, we've gotten the training, like we have all of like the research and everything, but I think it's how we translate that with the client that like as a collaborator, like they share the expertise of their own personal life and we can share some of the expertise of like research and everything. And again, like you guys said, not all of the research is going to apply to every single person. Like some research is going to apply, others might have nothing to do with them. So it's like we have to pick what's going to be important to them and be adaptable in what we're like, what like how we want to use the like models and theories and stuff so that it can fit the individual. And it's really just like finding that balance between like we're the expert, but we're not because we don't want to impose that, but we're still like we're there to help them guided by the evidence.
So just to touch base on social constructivism for a minute, and what one of the things that this brings up for me is how like really the internet landscape and how everybody has like these social medias and stuff, and I wonder, like, it's very fascinating to kind of think about clients who like have these specific worlds, so their reality is very specific to some of these things that we see online right now. They're being highly influenced. I'm sure y'all are like familiar some with like the incel culture, um uh, and so like that's their entire reality though. And I just think that that will be really interesting to see how, and why I bring the internet in is because I think that social constructivism like can actually has the power to analyze some of the internet like personalities that we go through right now. And yeah, just like we have like different cultures that exist and stuff, but now we have each individual creating their own online culture. So I'm just kind of curious how that'll play out like in the long run with like research or whatever. I don't know.
I know we kind of talked like touched on like different realities, and I think that like bringing that with the whole like creating a whole different culture online is it's so easy to kind of like change how you perceive like how others will perceive you and like what you're putting out on the internet to where it's interesting to kind of see how like what how you present yourself online can be very different to how you are in person and like seeing how that might like how the realities might get a little like chain like blended that like they might see themselves more so as the online rather than them like in person and like how that might kind of affect that.
Yeah, I think the internet has shaped the world rapidly in the last 15 years. And I think in a positive and a negative light, I think that um, having access to something so quickly is very dangerous. Um, People are self-medicating. You go to WebMD, I have these symptoms, so easily to convince yourself you have that. You know, um, School, there's so many sites now that you don't even have to read the information and you're having papers written for you and all that, not learning anything on the way. Children seeing things that if you're not watching what they're watching, my kids are on YouTube and they'll be watching these little kid videos and then all of a sudden it's a advertisement for a game and it's my daughter knows how a baby's born from a commercial on YouTube, you know? We've never had that discussion. So,
Wow.
so I definitely think, when the other day we went to the doctor, she asked us for consent to record her notes on a recording device, AI. And I said, yeah, this is the world we're in now, but how much access are we giving others to get to us, number one, right? Making ourselves vulnerable, but also putting out there for the world to see this version of me that I want you to know and see, right? But how authentic is that? And then am I also playing with myself or the other people in the fact of believing that alternate lifestyle universe? And then that's my reality. If nobody's telling me I'm wrong and they know none the wiser, right? It's just, it's to me, it's a very scary place. And then, hearing our lab professor talking about, people are using AI as a therapist. And I've actually watched it on reality TV. He said he was doing a session for an hour and he was crying and it was groundbreaking. And I'm thinking that this is the world we live in now. People, it's not about human contact anymore. And I think, unfortunately, COVID reshaped the world. It wasn't something we expected or kind of how we understood it, but that it shaped us a lot. So now, most of the time, you walk in the room and what are people doing? Their heads are down. And the algorithms are similar. And what you're looking at, if it's on that Wi-Fi, I'm probably going to get a pop-up on mine. It's a very scary place, and I think the vulnerability of the human race makes it even more dangerous. So I don't know. I say proceed with caution, but it just seems like we've already hit the ground running and it's just gonna evolve more and AI is gonna take over a lot more things. So it's something I'm nervous about. I'm a little scared of, but I'm trying to be as educated in it as possible. But kind of touching on being a parent nowadays, I don't like the feeling of not having control of what I bring to my kids' attention and I don't, what I feel is appropriate and what I want my timeline to look like. So it affects a lot, not just adults, older generations, baby boomers. I mean, half of them know how to use it now. And this just even getting out of therapy, the scams, it's in the black market. They say the number one reason why Americans are so easy is because we are the loneliest country. It starts with a hello, I miss you, and boom, you got it. Who's this? Blah blah blah, and it goes further. So sorry, I'm like all over the place with this, but it's a
Yeah,
rabbit hole.
and yeah, but that's the thing though, is that this is our reality. So to kind of like ground that back in theory right now, can social constructivism or postmodernism, can they help us address this? And I think that we need to be asking those questions right now too. Because here we are and we have such a heaviness when we talk about this stuff. And so, like, can we apply those theories to our problems right now? I think it's worth really considering. And yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely doable, but I feel like on the other side of that, it's how receptive is your client to hearing these things? How am I forced to be here? Am I feeling it? Was this an ultimatum? Is this something I'm doing for myself because things aren't working out? It all depends what mindset you come into it with. And unfortunately, we're going to get a lot of people that they're just going with the flow. They were forced. They don't believe in it, and we're not going to be able to make the changes maybe that we have in our mind. And I think we need to be prepared for that. It's going to affect us. It's gonna take a toll, and we need to be able to process that and just know that we're reaching for all the tools we have in our bag, and if that's not doing it, then all we can do is support, kind of taking it back to the other one is support and find resources, or maybe someone else kind of is better trained with what's happening, and we can reference somebody else they can speak to, but never leaving them, if as helpless as we can feel, never leaving them without the option of seeing somebody else.
An interesting tie between the two that I saw was like whether or not like postmodernism can like help with these issues. I think that'll be very prevalent in working with the younger generation because
Mhm.
they have been living with iPads and like YouTube at their disposal so easily, and it's really going to test whether or not like the postmodernism and like other theories like that can kind of help with that because that's all they're gonna know, and it's like so like ingrained in them with technology and like even AI now at this point and the internet. And so whether or not, and I think it'll be very interesting to kind of see how like research and like see how it's kind of working out with that and see if there's going to be tweaks or like what kind of does the best job with that. So, yeah.
Research is going to be very important to
Mhm.
continue that. I mean, unfortunately for me, that doesn't call my attention in this field, but definitely research continuing on the different age groups and seeing what works for them because I do see also not only the electronics but the mentality is very different. It's
Mhm.
very entitled and it's a know-it-all mentality. So that's going to be um, another difficult hurdle in helping people.
Y'all, I think we could probably go on this conversation for a lot
Yeah,
longer,
we
but
could.
maybe we should finish it up for
Yeah,
the sake of our
yeah,
assignment.
yes,
Excellent conversation.
Yeah.
yes, guys. Thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you
a
Yeah,
guys.
thank
pleasure.
you.